Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how to replace the power steering belt on a Nissan Quest. This particular one here is a 2008. It has the 3.5 liter V6. Let's go ahead and get started. Now it's important to check your belts, power steering, serpentine, all of those. You want to be checking them. They recommend it at 60,000 point and then replacing them at 90,000. Anytime I have the hood up, or in the case of this vehicle, it's under the well, not under, but behind the passenger side wheel. But anytime that you're working on your vehicle or got the hood up or doing work, always inspect those. You want to look for cracks or anything that looks like it could be wearing out that could be unsafe. The last thing you want is these things breaking while you're driving. For the power steering one, if that one goes, you're going to lose your power steering because that's connected to the power steering pulley. There's the other one, which is the serpentine belt, which goes to your alternator, your AC compressor, things like that. If that one goes, your alternator will stop working, you'll drain your battery and can leave you stranded. If you want to see the video I did on how to replace the serpentine belt on this vehicle, I'll have a link across the top down in the description. But for this one, we're going to be focusing on the power steering one. First thing I need to do is we need to head over here. I have the vehicle already lifted up. Let's remove the wheel on this side so we can take a look and see what's inside. All right. And what I wanted to show you, just use this cheap little Chicago Electric impact wrench. If you want to see a product review I did on it, I'll have a link across the top, also down in the description. This thing comes in handy a lot for getting off lug nuts. I have a pneumatic one as well, but I use this one a lot. So if you want to check that out, it's definitely a good investment. They're very inexpensive, but let me get the camera in here up close and we'll see what we're looking at here, and I'll start showing you what else we have to do in here to get to it. Coming in here, and let's take a look. You can see this belt right here. That is the serpentine belt that we already replaced, and you'll see behind it, this is your crankshaft pulley right here. So you have your serpentine belt right here on the front. On the back side, connected to it, is the one that goes up there to the power steering. That's the one that we're going to be replacing today. To get to it, we do need to remove this one as well. So let me show you what's needed in order to complete this. These are the items that you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need your power steering belt right here. And this one here I picked up at AutoZone, so it's the Continental brand. There's the part number. You can get these online, any auto parts store. Just make sure that you're asking for the one for the power steering and not the alternator and AC compressor serpentine belt. Next, what I have here, and I highly recommend it, is what's known as a go-through or a push-through ratchet. And I have a 12 millimeter and a 14 millimeter socket for it. And these are really good because as opposed to a typical ratchet where the socket goes on like this, right? It slides on that way, you have all that. This one goes into it. So it's good for very low profile locations, which you'll see on this vehicle is the problem because of the tensioner guide pulley for the serpentine belt is only about maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the frame, so you can't get in there with a regular socket and ratchet. If you're just using just a regular wrench, sometimes you don't get enough leverage and you run the risk of stripping that nut. So I highly recommend this. Also, when we need to get up top to the 12 millimeter nuts that we saw for the power steering belt, that'll come in handy as well. Next, we have a regular ratchet, an extension. I have a 12-inch extension, which comes in handy. And then we have just a regular 12 millimeter and a regular 14 millimeter socket. And this is everything that you need. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to pop the hood here so I can show you. There's an adjuster bolt up here that adjusts the guide pulley to apply or to remove the tension on the serpentine belt. We need to remove that first so we can loosen that, and then we'll need to take, there's a 14 millimeter nut, and I'm going to show you in a minute, in the middle of that pulley that has to be loosened as well, so that way that can move freely, so we can get the tension off, remove that belt, and then we can access the power steering one. But let me get a close-up in here, and I'll show you what we're going to need to be adjusting to remove the tension off of the pulley for the serpentine belt. See, you can see it right there. If we come right here, this is a 14 millimeter right here. You can just put a socket on that, turn it counterclockwise to loosen it, clockwise to tighten it. But first we need to, let's head underneath and I'll show you the 14 millimeter nut in the middle of the pulley. Coming right here, Here's the pulley, and that's the 14 millimeter. We'll loosen that nut, and then we'll be able to raise and lower it from the 14 millimeter we just saw up top. Once we're able to loosen that, we can push that pulley up, get the belt off, and then we'll have full access to get to the power steering belt. And we'll come up here. That's our adjuster there to adjust the tension on the power steering belt. Now looking up in there, see if I can get a shot of it. See if I can get a better shot close up. Those are two 12 millimeters. At the very top, you have your locking nut, which is a 12 millimeter. We'll have to loosen that first. Then here on the bottom is another 12 millimeter, and that's our adjuster screw. So once we loosen the locking nut, then we can move the adjuster screw, turn it clockwise, and that will then give us slack because it'll bring things together, and then we can take the belt off, and then we're going to go counterclockwise to tighten it once we're done. So coming in here, we're going to start by loosening this. You want this loosened so that, and you see I have a 17, that's because I changed out this nut. The 14 millimeter, which if you have the factory one, that's what it'll be. I changed that out because it got stripped. But you want to loosen this. There we go. Let's see here. There we go. It's nice and loose. So we can head up top now and we can release the tension off of this one. Bring our ratchet in with our 14 millimeter socket. Get it on here. And then we're going to go counterclockwise. And that will loosen it so we can, and I'll show you when we head under there, but this will loosen it up so we can push that pulley up and get that belt off. Once you loosen it, you can, there you go, just take it by hand. And let's see, loosen it up. Should be able to. See how we can move it? Let's head underneath. Let's see how we can move it now. So we can push it up, and that'll take the tension off. And then we can now pull it off of here like that. Get that out of the way. And if you haven't replaced yours at this time, this is definitely the time to replace it since you're going to have it off. I just replaced this one. As mentioned already, you can check out that video. I'll have the link down in the description. But here's the power steering one here. So let's loosen that one up. Next, we're going to use our pass-through. And you can see this tight fit, how I'm able to get in here with that 12 millimeter. Let me get a better shot so you can see it. And you can see how I get a nice snug grip on it from here. Now we can just turn it. Let's see, get a good pull on it. There we go, broke it loose. And it's pretty tight up in here. That's why I recommend, there we go. I recommend this ratchet because you're not going to get anything else up there. If you try to use a wrench, unless you can get a breaker bar or a pipe on the end of it, you're not going to get anywhere with that. So we'll loosen this. And I think we're just about there. And then now we can come under here. We're going to use our extension and get another 12 on here to loosen that. And then we can loosen this belt. So the next thing that I'm going to do is we're going to connect in here with our 12-inch extension. We're going to rotate this clockwise and compress it. That'll take the tension off. Unfortunately, I can't show it because I got to film. So we're going to be turning it clockwise, as you can see. And then we'll get all the tension loose so we can take off the belt. And then we'll do counterclockwise to tighten it back up when the new belt's put back on. Just finished loosening everything. You can see how that's fully compressed. And you can see the belt here. It's very loose. I can just slide it right off of this pulley. Comes off this way. and then we'll slide it over this crankshaft pulley. Bring it this way. Let's take a look at it. So here it is, the one that just came off, and it's actually not in bad shape. I just figured while we were doing some other work to the vehicle with the serpentine belt, it'd be a good time to replace it. If we take a look at it, turn it this way so we can see it. It doesn't have any major damage, just some like, well, a little bit of cracking here. I'll get some close-ups, but this is the original belt, and this is a 2008 vehicle. Ripping a little bit here. Let me get some close-ups, but still it's kind of drying out. Didn't want to take the risk. Got a little bit right there. Cracking off there, and just in general, it's just very dried out, so rather than risk it breaking, we'll swap it out. Now to put the new one on, we're going to follow the same way we took the old one off. We're going to start by putting it over the crankshaft pulley. Now, and I'm going to show you here. The crankshaft pulley, you have this part here, which is for your serpentine belt. And then behind it, here, up in here, is where the power steering belt goes. Let me get a close-up. And that's it there. On the left, the smaller part there is for the power steering, and then this one on the right, the larger one, is for the regular serpentine belt for the alternator and the AC compressor. So as we put this in, we want it to go in the back. So we want it back here. On the top as well. Get it all the way over. And let's see if I can get a close-up so you can see where we have it. And that's it in there. So now that that's set, we're going to bring it here and put it around this pulley for the power steering. Feed that around it. There we go. Make sure it's all in the grooves. Check here as well. What I do is just run my hand around it. Make sure everything is set in properly. And then the next thing that we'll do is we will start counterclockwise turning the tensioner. And then once we have the tension right, and we'll look at it, then we'll go ahead and do the locking 12 up here to lock it in place. And then we can put the serpentine belt for the alternator and the AC compressor back on there. Tighten it up top, and then we are done. And you can see here, I added another extension. So we have a 6-inch at the bottom, 12-inch up top, reaching right up in there. And we're just tightening it, going counterclockwise. And then we'll be back in a minute to take a look at it. Everything is on, tightened up, and I'll show you here. This right here is a nice tension. You want to have about 1/4 of an inch. If you push on it, that's what you want here in this open spot right here. That's how you know it's a good tension. So if we push it, it should go about 1/4 of an inch movement, which it's doing. So we are good. So next we can tighten up here. Let's see. That other 12-inch up there, which is our locking nut. So we want to lock that bolt up there to lock everything in place. And we'll inspect one more time on the pulleys. Let's just make sure that everything is good. You can see it's right on track with that. And in here, it's nice and in line. So everything is good. I'm going to tighten that one up top, and then we'll be back to put the serpentine belt on for the alternator and then wrap this up. Okay. That's nice and tightened. Okay. Everything has been tightened up on there. Next, we're going to put the serpentine belt on. Let's get that put on, get that all wrapped up, and then we'll fire up the vehicle and make sure everything's working fine. Got all this on, and we can see here, tension is good. Let's see. As mentioned already, you want about no more than 1/4 of an inch. You don't want it too tight because you don't want to be straining on those pulleys, but you don't want it too loose where it's going to slip. So that's good. And now you can see everything. There's our power steering belt. Serpentine belt is back on. Everything is tightened up. All right, well, as we saw, everything was running good. That wraps up this video on how to replace the power steering belt on a Nissan Quest. This is with the 3.5 liter V6. As mentioned at the beginning, any of the vehicles utilizing that engine, I think there was a couple other models of vehicles that had it. It should be the same. But that wraps up this video. I hope it was informative for you. As mentioned already, if you want to see the one more in depth where we do the serpentine belt, I'll have that down in the description, as well as some other videos that we've done with this vehicle. Please send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.